To retrieve the detailed data, open the PRESTAN CPR feedback app on your smart device. Select the Data tab at the bottom of the screen. This will bring up a list of all the historical data that has been collected from your training sessions. The overall list shows the name of the Manikins, or, in the case where you temporarily renamed the Manikin, it would show the student name instead. It will also show the date and time the data was collected, the guideline used in the training, and the overall score the student achieved in the training session. To review the detailed data for any of the individual students, select the Manikin by tapping on the name. This will open up a window where you can dive deeper into the details of the session, to see specifics on how well a student performed. At the top of the page, you will see the overall session details that will include the name used for the Manikin, the date and time, the device used in the training, the guideline used, and the overall combined training score achieved in the session. Below this, there are two tabs: Summary and Graph. The Summary tab will provide a general synopsis of the training session. This includes data from all the categories collected, including compressions, ventilations, and hands-off time. Down the left-hand side of the screen, you will see each section has a category score. These category scores are combined, and are used to calculate the overall training score. Just to the right of the score column, is the average column. This column shows the averages for all cycles completed within that individual training session. The subsequent columns, to the right of the average column, show the results for each cycle. First, is the compressions category. This data is broken down into the rate, measured in compressions per minute, and the depth. The ratio below the depth shows the number of compressions. The numerator is the number of what is considered to be a good compression, in accordance with the applicable guidelines. The denominator shows the total compressions that were performed within that specific cycle. Next is the ventilations category. In this category, you will notice the top number shows the maximum volume of any breaths performed in the cycle. The bottom number will show the ratio of good breaths over the total breaths performed within that specific cycle. Lastly, hands-off time is the amount of time that has elapsed between when compressions were stopped for performing a ventilation cycle, and when compressions were restarted, after the ventilation cycle was complete. If more than 2 cycles were completed within a training session, the additional cycle data can be viewed by pressing anywhere within the table, and dragging your finger to the left, to reveal any additional cycles, and its respective data. Moving to the Graph button. Once the Graph button is pressed, the screen will change to show the detailed data that was recorded for the training session. At the top of the Graph screen, is the summary of the training session. This includes overall session score, date and time, training device used, number of cycles, and lastly, duration of the recorded training session. In the center section of the screen, you will find the detailed data of the entire session, shown in a simple graphical display. On the graph you can see the depth and recoil measurements of each individual compression. There are lines to indicate the recoil limit, and the acceptable target range for compression depth. If you wish to see the entire duration on the training session, you can press on the graph, and drag your finger left or right, to scroll through the entire session. If you drag the graph to the left, you will see that ventilations are also shown on the graph, again with the acceptable target range clearly defined. Compressions or ventilations, that were deemed to be in the acceptable range in accordance with the guidelines for depth, recoil, or volume, will be indicated with the bar color being green. Anytime a deficiency is recorded, the bar on the graph will show up as yellow, and a small red triangle will show the correction needed. For instance, if a compression is too shallow, the compression bar will show up yellow, the length of the bar will be short of the acceptable target range, and a red triangle will be pointing downward, showing that the compression needed to be deeper. Ventilations will be handled in the same manner. Green bars indicate good ventilation volume, whereas a deficient ventilation volume will show up as a yellow bar. This yellow bar will be either short of the acceptable target range, or past the target range, and a red triangle will be present, pointing in the direction of needed improvement. At the bottom of the screen is the synopsis of the data collected for the specific cycle that is being shown in the visible window of the graph. This data includes current cycle number, ratio of good compressions over the number of total compressions in the cycle, duration of the cycle, average rate of compressions, average volume of ventilations, and the hands-off time of the cycle. For more information on the PRESTAN Professional Adult Series 2000 Manikin, please reference the instruction sheet, troubleshooting guide, and frequently asked questions, available on the PRESTAN website at prestanproducts.com.